The moment I realized my music didn't sound professional wasn't gradual. It was a single night where I put my track on a playlist next to a released song in the same genre and hit play. I've been working on that track for 2 weeks. I thought it was close. It wasn't close. The reference had weight and clarity and space and presence, and mine sounded like it was coming through a pillow from another room. I sat there for a while not touching anything, just listening to the gap, trying to figure out what was actually different. It wasn't talent. It wasn't plugins. It wasn't even skill at that point. It was that I had been making music in a vacuum with no external standard to measure against, so I had no way of knowing how far off I was until I heard it directly. That's where the first thing that changed everything came from. I started keeping a reference track open in every single session, from the very beginning before I had written a single note, a finished, mastered song in the same genre, something I wanted to be in the same conversation as. Every 20 minutes, I'd flip between my project and the reference and just listen, not to copy it, just to feel the gap and understand which direction to walk. The reference became my quality control. Without it, I was just guessing. The second thing was gain staging, which nobody talks about early enough. Gain staging means setting the levels of every individual sound before you touch any effects, so that nothing is hitting too hot or sitting too quiet coming into the chain. When your levels are wrong going in, every plugin after it is compensating for a problem instead of doing its actual job. Your compressor is working too hard, your reverb sounds unnatural, your EQ moves don't translate. I used to build an entire mix and then wonder why everything sounded glued together in the wrong way. The answer was almost always that the foundation was wrong before I'd even started. The third thing was mono. I started checking my mixes in mono early in the process, not just at the end, and what it showed me was brutal and useful at the same time. Mono collapses everything, all the width, all the stereo spread, all the tricks that make things sound wide and impressive, and what's left is just a raw relationship between sounds and frequency space. If something disappears in mono, it means it was only surviving because of stereo width, not because it had a real place in the mix. Fixing problems in mono first means that when you open back up to stereo, everything that was already working now sounds even bigger. The fourth thing was the hardest to learn because it goes against every instinct you have when you're starting out. Professional music sounds full and rich not because of everything that's in it, but because of everything that's been taken out. I used to add layers constantly, another synth, another pad, another texture, thinking more was more. What I was actually doing was filling every frequency and every moment until nothing had room to breathe. The arrangements that hit hardest are the ones with real space in them, where the kick has room to punch, and the vocal has nothing competing with it in the frequencies it needs, and the drop lands because the breakdown before it was genuinely empty. Subtraction is a skill, and it took me longer to develop than anything else. None of these are secrets in the sense that they're hidden. They're just the things that don't get talked about first, so by the time you find them, you've already spent a year wondering why your music sounds the way it does. The gap between amateur and professional sounding music is almost never about having better tools. It's about having a reference, clean levels going in, a mix that works in mono before it works in stereo, and a discipline to take things out when everything in you wants to add more. That night with the playlist was the most useful thing that ever happened to my music. It just took me a while to be grateful for it.